Hi, it's Caitlin in the editing booth again. So, our honey episode, which this one is, ran a wee bit long. So, we chopped it up into two episodes. So, right now, you are listening to part one of H for honey. And then next week, you will be seeing part two of H for honey. It was just a really fun episode, and we had so much to talk about. So I will see you next week with the second half. Thanks so much for listening. Hello, and welcome back to
Common Roots.
This is our podcast about herbalism, history, and healthcare. I am Caitlin. I use she, her pronouns.
And I am Cheshire, and I also use she, her pronouns.
And here is our wee little disclaimer that we do at the beginning of every episode. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare practitioner, ideally an herbalist or your doctor, before starting any new herbal regimen, especially if you are pregnant, nursing, on medication, or have a known medical condition. Today's episode is H for honey. Also, alternate title for today's episode is the un-bee-lieveable episode.
Yes, I'm so excited. I love honey.
Yes. We are doing this episode ever so slightly different. So normally we'll do like the bulk of the episode is our like history, story, discussion portion. And then we do like a separate section at the end for our herb of the day. But because this is honey and the topic of the episode is bees, everything's just sort of smushed together into one big section. So we're going to be talking about bees, honey, other bee products, the history of just a whole big bee.
It's un-bee-lieveable.
Yeah. I'm just buzzing with all the exciting information I have to share.
That's good.
About bees.
I'm trying to think of it. All I had was unbelievable.
It's okay. That it may be hard to
It may
deal
be
with.
hard.
Yeah, but like don't let the sting of disappointment in your inability to come up with more puns keep you down.
Thank you.
You're
yeah,
welcome.
That's good.
Thanks. Yeah. So, we're just going to dive into it because I have been reading and studying, and it has been a fascinating journey.
It usually takes you a couple hours to prep for these episodes. You were all day yesterday, like, bees. There's so much. And I'm very excited, to be honest. Because I also, even many years ago, before I even knew I was trans, when I was learning that they were pulling honey out of ancient Egyptian tombs that was still edible, I was like, what the hell? And when I was super into survivalism, I was like, you need bees if you want to survive the zombie apocalypse that's definitely going to happen.
Yes.
Listen, I was a little nuts back then, okay? Well, I'm still a little bit, but maybe in a different direction.
Yeah.
A more positive direction.
Yeah. Bees. So the honeybee is the primary producer of honey, but there are also stingless bees and other bees that also produce and store honey. Fun fact I didn't know about. Only members of the genus Apis are true honeybees. Honeybees are, however, only a small fraction of the 20,000 known species of bees.
Wow.
So many species of bees. The main species that we will be talking about today are Apis mellifera and Apis cerana, which are the two domesticated species of bees. I don't say domesticated in that they're like, calm, normal, human-friendly bees, but that we breed them specifically for farm use. Apis mellifera is the Western or European honeybee and is most common in where we live.
Well, I will say, so I used to hate bees when I was a child. Unbelievably. They were like, I just hated them.
Yeah.
Because we used to we would get hornets, basically, hornet nests, or like little, like they were almost smaller than bees, but they were very aggressive. And they were always just everywhere. I would get stung by bees constantly. I've been chased by a swarm of bees like a cartoon character
But they
more than
weren't
one
bees,
time in my
probably.
life.
They weren't bees, probably. They were probably hornets or wasps. I remember our house in New Hampshire. Every single freaking summer, between the screen door and the main door, they would start building wasp nests.
Yeah, wasps. You're right.
And I think bees get a bad rap
Because of that.
because of wasps. Because
Yes.
bees also have stingers. And so people are like, bees, don't sting me.
But we've been in the UK, in Brighton. There's bees everywhere because they finally cut back on all the insecticide.
Oh my God, there's so many bees. I'm so happy
It's
every time
actually
I see
really
bees.
good. And I've seen, I mean, we're walking through the park and there's like, the ground is like alive with bees. As a child, that would have scared me to death. But the thing is, I haven't been stung once. Not once. You know?
Bees don't want to sting you. That's the other thing.
Yeah, you have to piss them off.
You have to really
wasps
piss a
are
bee
angry
off.
little buggers.
They're not nice. I also don't like
Hornets.
white Anglo-Saxon Protestants.
So. Hey, I don't mind. Yeah, well, as a voting bloc, that's fair.
I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I'm joking. I just think it's funny. People don't use wasp anymore, I don't think, to describe ladies. I think we use Karens, but it used to be that they were called wasps.
That's fair.
Anyway, so first off, fun facts about bees. So bees are eusocial. Sociality is the way in which an animal species gathers together in social groups and forms cooperative societies. So like herd animals or pack animals, they have a certain level of sociality. Eusocial is the highest tier on the scale of sociality. It is defined by the following characteristics. So cooperative brood care. Care of offspring is shared between different individuals, even if there is no blood relation between the adult and the offspring that they're caring for. So bees have nurse bees, whose job is to care for all of the baby bees, baby larvae, regardless of who gave birth to them.
Yeah. They're very communal, right?
Incredibly. In fact, a beehive is considered a single superorganism. Because of how communal and close a beehive acts.
That's funny. I mean, but would you say humanity is a single superorganism then, right? Or a city?
No.
Because, I mean, we do the same thing
There's
in some ways, right? Like, we have people that do daycare.
There's definitely a lot of overlap, but bees have an even more... Bees are like compulsively eusocial.
Really?
Yeah.
I think we are too, to be honest.
I mean, I definitely
the
think
systems we live under stop that a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But inherently we are, and that's why people are so lonely and unhappy, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. So another aspect of eusociality is overlapping generations within the adults. This means that there are both parents and grandparents present in the adult population. A division of labor into reproductive and non-reproductive groups. This isn't just a division of males and females, but also females of a certain age that no longer reproduce, or females who are not permitted to reproduce, in the case of bees. So in the case of bees, the society is split into men, who are the drones, and women, who are split into worker bees and a bunch of other different groups.
Yeah.
The queen is the only individual permitted to lay eggs unless she assigns other female bees to lay eggs. But most of the time, if they do that, she'll kill all those eggs.
Really?
Because she's the only one allowed.
That's very strange. I mean,
yeah. The idea, the problem is basically what happens is a beehive gets to a certain size, and worker bees will lay eggs because they're trying to get a new queen who will take a chunk of the beehive away. But the current queen's like, you can't do that. These are my people.
It's funny. This all sounds very human, really.
It is very funny. So the fossil record shows that the first honeybees evolved approximately 34 million years ago. We think they originated in South and Southeast Asia and spread out from this point, but they quickly adapted to live on every single continent. There are bees on every continent except for the Arcticas because there's no insects up there anyway. But everywhere there are insects, there are bees. Apis mellifera, or the European honeybee, was first domesticated around 2600 BCE. So that puts it about 3,000 years ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, imagine, too, like, there's only so much sweetness in the world, right? Honey is a big one.
Oh, but I haven't even gotten into it, girlfriend.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll let you keep going.
It looks like the Egyptians were the first one to domesticate honeybees.
Mm-hmm.
However, we have evidence that hunter-gatherer tribes were gathering honey as far back as 40,000 years ago.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. So one of the early recorded instances of humans interacting with bee products comes from a spear point found in a Spanish cave, which was attached to the shaft with the aid of beeswax. 40,000 years ago.
Probably twice as long as that, in all honesty.
I mean, that's the first piece of evidence we found.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like...
But we know animals go for honeybee nests all the time.
Well, even, like, so...
Honey badger don't care.
That's true.
I just aged myself for the internet people.
But I think, like, for bees, for honey, for all the reasons that drew me to it as a survivalist, you know, if you lived 80,000 years ago or 40,000 years ago, you were a survivalist. That's how you just gotta be.
That's how you gotta be.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm gonna do it all episode.
I know, me too. You got me that time though. There's only so much sweetness in the world, really, right? Especially if you don't have access to, like, processed sugars.
Well, the whole point is that our body is attracted to sugars.
Yeah.
Because it is the most efficient fuel.
Yeah.
For our body.
Yeah.
And if you're living meal to meal, day to day, you want and crave sugar, which, of course, the food industry has used to destroy
us,
all of us.
Humanity.
However, that is why, yes, sources of sweetness would have been incredibly valuable.
Yeah. But, like, there's fruits and things in the summer, sometimes even in the spring and the fall or autumn. But, like, there's nothing in winter to begin with, you know, unless you preserved it, which they had to invent that. But honey is already preserved, you know? You don't have to do anything to honey. If you gather honey, you have a lot of high quality, you know, really tasty, lovely food, and it will last you forever, literally forever.
Not only does it last you forever, but you can use it to preserve other foods.
Yeah.
Honey as a preservative goes back thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of years.
And it's medicine, right?
Yeah.
And I talked about this before, but basically, I think in some ways, people of 80,000 years ago were more technologically developed than us because they only had a much more limited number of materials to work with.
Yes. Well, like I said in our episode about Neanderthals and prehistoric humans, which you should definitely go back and listen to. Mm-hmm. These people had like incredibly advanced, like sophisticated healthcare and communal medicine, basically. Yeah.
But so figuring out then that honey is useful for medicine also, you know, I'm sure they figured that out pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
How long is 1,000 years? I think I could probably figure out in 1,000 years that the really good food also happens to be useful on injuries.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then that spreads, and now everyone does it, basically, right?
Yeah, I mean, we already know that basically what happened was honey is sticky, right?
Yeah.
Like that's one of the principal properties of it. And so Egyptians used honey to adhere bandages to people's skin.
Yeah.
But they found that when they used honey to adhere bandages versus using some other sticky thing,
glue,
the honey worked way better at actually the wounds healed better. So you have these things where humans use something for a property that it has and find out that it's way better. Like, I was thinking too, again, you should go back and listen to our ancient Egyptian episode because we already did that as well. But I was thinking about that episode and how ancient Egyptians used like moldy bread. And like we were like, what the did they know about penicillin? Like, no, they didn't. But here's my theory. I'm going to throw it at you. I know that this is slightly off topic, but I was thinking about bread being absorbent, right? Imagine that you have a leaking wound.
Sure.
And so you like use bread to sop up the leaking wound.
Okay.
And then the wound is infected and you use whatever bread you have on hand because you don't want to eat the bread that you're using to sop up a leaking wound.
Yeah, you might as well use the bread that's
you might
a bit
use
moldy.
the old bread.
Yeah,
and then
it's just a sponge, basically.
Yeah. And then it like the wound is better after. And you're like, I guess moldy bread's magic, whatever, but then you're using it. What do you think of that theory of how we started using moldy bread?
Yeah, I think that's very clever. I think that's very believable.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, all this stuff is like, because you don't know, right? Unless someone wrote it down, because it's been so long.
I mean, they did write down, we use moldy bread on wounds.
Yeah, but not why.
Why? Because it's magic. But my whole thing is like, how do you even start? And that was my theory on like what happened.
No, I think that makes total sense. They were like,
I want to sop up this leaky wound, and I don't want to use the good bread.
Yeah.
But anyway, totally off topic. I'm so sorry. We're going to get back to bees now. But like, you should definitely go back and listen to our ancient Egypt episode. It was super fun. Yeah. And has a lot about honey in it already. Actually, Eleanor had to cut a lot of that because we went on a honey rant. But we're going to go on a honey rant again today.
Yeah.
Anyway, so ancient rock art from literally everywhere has depicted various aspects of beehive, including like one cave painting in Spain, which like literally gives you instructions on like how to climb and get access to a tree hive. And then there was another red and white painting from Zimbabwe that depicted not just honeycomb, but also like kind of showed all the different portions of a hive as like an educational thing. So it showed the brood, it showed the reproductive portion of the hive where the queen lays the eggs, and it showed the larval bees in their cells.
That's fascinating.
I know.
And this was without written language, basically.
Exactly. So these
used pictures.
Yeah, and basically knowing the reproductive cycle of a beehive would have helped hunter-gatherers in knowing when to collect honey.
See.
Yeah.
And of course you can pass it down, right? Obviously, it's one thing to memorize it and have a very precise, verbal history, but that requires a lot of, like, dedicated training and effort. It's another thing that someone has their blackboard covered in, here's the pictures, and then all you have to remember is you look at this picture, and you're like, yes, here's where I should talk about the larval stage or whatever, right? It's very interesting.
Yeah. So bees were actually probably the first domesticated creature of the Neolithic Revolution, alongside sheep and goats. So we're talking 10 to 11,000 years ago, at the very beginning of the Neolithic agricultural revolution. Bees were right in there. We were like, we're going to settle down. We're going to build the bees' houses alongside our houses because we need the bees.
Well, the other thing I know is that, especially early in the agricultural revolution, people were less healthy if they were settled versus if they were hunter-gatherers, basically. But they think that the reason that a lot of people settled anyway, and now pretty much all of us are settled, is because alcohol. And you know what you can make out of honey?
You're so ahead of me, babe, because mead is actually the first human alcohol before beer. Like a lot of us, or you may know that like wheat obviously very early, so we made beer very, very early on in the agricultural revolution. But evidence shows that mead was probably before that. Yeah. Because it's very easy to ferment honey.
But that's what made people basically. You were putting yourself in a position where you'd have less food. You wouldn't get to move around at all. You have to do all this hard, horrible work farming. But then you get to drink.
And oh my God, mead is so much better than beer.
I love me a good mead.
Like I don't want to badmouth anyone who enjoys beer. I can't stand it.
You just hate hops.
Stand it. I don't like that sour taste.
But you hate hops.
I know, but I'm just saying, mead is better than beer. I don't.
I've had very sweet beers, and you still don't like it because you
No,
hate the
because it's
hops.
got the hops in it. I
Yeah.
know. All right, another fun archaeological find: the ancient city of Tel Rahov in Israel, which dates back to 10,000 BCE. So most of the time, beehives were kept outside of cities. However, in the center of this city, were between 30 and 100 hives within a very dense urban area.
Wow.
Like, this was quite a large city. And that's actually fascinating to me because that means that there also must have been food sources for the bees. You have 100 hives,
Flowers
you
and
must
things.
have a city covered in flowers.
Yeah. I mean, well, so two things, right? First of all, I do know that bees, they won't, you need flowers a little further away because the way that bees work is that if you put a flower right next to a beehive, they won't go for it often. Um,
Yeah.
because they go out and grab the honey and then they come back and they're too tired, basically.
Yeah.
But they're also telling themselves, I don't want to get the stuff that's right here because that's easy to get,
Mm-hmm.
basically. So
Yeah.
we'll hold on to that. But then they hold on to it forever, like when you have 999 elixirs at the end of a video game.
Honeybees are hoarders, and that's part of, we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, they're absolutely hoarders.
Yeah. So if they have flowers right in front of their hive, they won't get them. But so basically, if you're growing things, bees are key to all of it, right? So maybe they had the fields right outside the city, but if they had the bee nests where the fields are, the bees wouldn't go there. But if you got the bees in the city, then it works. And the other thing is, I think you're absolutely right. You know, flowers are a very easy decoration. And I even know, like, today, right? When we were in New Hampshire, they were throwing wildflowers all over the interstate. And it was gorgeous. It totally lifted my mood. And unfortunately, the interstate is sort of like an evil demon, probably designed to like torture the human spirit.
I walk a lonely road.
But like,
Well, it's also better for the soil. Instead of having
yes.
just grass everywhere, they had wildflowers.
But imagine being in a city, you know, it's, especially back then, sanitation's a bit of an issue sometimes.
Yeah.
And like, you can just brighten up everything by having basically every patch of dirt covered in flowers.
Yeah.
And this is in the Middle East too, so they could have flowers year round, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's like a big thing, especially early on in the Middle East. They had so many gardens. I mean, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon are like the famous like thing that was in the Middle East. They were extremely talented gardeners and florists.
And it all works together, right? Like it's all tied as part of it.
Synergistic.
Very synergistic, right? You have the bees in the middle, which now they're easy to access because all you got is walking, right? So you can easily access these hives for when they're ready to harvest and get all the honey out and get your mead and get your medicine and get all this other stuff. You can also...
I guess it's out of season because it's a fall
thing,
isn't it? We should go get some mead.
We could get some mead.
It's out of season, though.
There's no such thing as out of season for mead. Mead keeps for quite a
technically,
while.
That's true.
But so basically, now you have gorgeous, beautiful flowers all over. They smell nice. They look nice.
Mm-hmm.
You have honey, which is useful for countless things. You know, it does. It all works together really well. So I think that's, you know, I would love to do something like that.
I mean, it's just like the image that I think it brings up of like a garden in the middle of a bustling city that just is, you know, full of beehives and flowers and plants, and like that just sounds wonderful.
But that's what I'm saying. I don't think the flowers were just on top of the beehives.
No, I'm saying it would be part
all
of
through the whole city.
Throughout
was a
the
city of flowers.
Yeah, exactly. So the Egyptians, like I said, probably were one of the first to domesticate bees. They were also like, they almost had like a factory farming situation going on with bees. Like they were crazy in like the way that they industrialized this process because honey was so valuable. Yeah. They tried to mass produce as much of it as possible. So they actually constructed rafts floating platforms along the River Nile and then covered them in beehives. And they would basically float them down the river depending on which flowering plant was in season in order to increase the honey yield.
I mean, the thing is, it is like they did a lot of this with salt too. Certain things, even without the processes, even without the materials that we have now to make it a lot easier to industrialize, certain things are so important that it's like people figured out how to industrialize it just because they wanted literally as much of it as they could possibly get.
Well, honey was so prolific in ancient Egypt that it was used by all classes and levels of society. It was affordable to everyone, and that was because they were producing so freaking much of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they also used a lot of beeswax. It was in all of their cosmetics. It was in mummification, all kinds of stuff.
I mean, wax, absolutely, as a material.
We'll get to beeswax as we talk about different honey products, but beeswax is way better than just regular wax.
Well, also just wax at all. Where do you get wax from if you're an ancient Egyptian?
Well, there's some plants that produce like wax-like substances. And
In Egypt?
I don't know, actually, off the top of my head.
I bet you there are.
But beeswax was definitely the biggest one.
You know, it's you already need the honey, right? For all kinds of
everything.
Things. Yeah. And you're also getting a wax, which it sounds like is better than a lot of the waxes you would get out of a plant. So it's like, I totally get why they were farming the hell out of it.
Yeah. So I did want to take a moment before we get too far into the episode, because I know that some of our audience may have some concerns, and I do agree with some of those concerns on a lot of levels. So like veganism is what I want to talk about basically. So I want to talk about like the concerns of vegans and honey products. So you and I mostly agree with a lot of the ideas behind veganism, right?
Yes.
I think that we have a lot of the same concerns with the food industry that we have with the medical industry. Like we just mentioned earlier, basically science figured out that we're evolutionarily drawn to certain things, and then the food industry was like, we can destroy their lives and make a lot of money out of it. And so, you know, the food industry is commercialized, it is large scale, it is, you know, factory farming, super industrial, very low on ethics, full of horrible practices. And like, we totally get that.
I think on an ethical level, I agree with, actually, I think veganism maybe isn't even far enough. I think the Jains have it right, where they don't even harvest like root vegetables and things because it kills the plant. But, you know.
So I do.
Not for me.
Yeah. So I do want to just like reassure. I know that this is an episode about bees and about bee products. I totally understand where vegans are coming from. And if this isn't an episode for you, if you've gotten this far because you're angry and you want me to shut up talking about bees, I totally understand if you're too uncomfortable to listen. And I totally respect that. I do think, like, as with all things, I do absolutely think that there is a ethical way to keep bees. And there are a lot of organizations that are doing that. So there's a thing called the Natural Beekeeping Trust in the UK, who are focused on building specialized hives, or not hives at all. They like carve holes out of trees and things like that to encourage bees to just do what they naturally want to do. Mm-hmm. And that if you're taking bee products from bees, you're not taking more than you need, right? Because the idea is that like there's like the base idea of we don't eat honey because we're vegan is that taking honey from honeybees is inherently harmful because they need honey to live. It's a food source. I do want to address that just a little briefly, just to be like, bees are hoarders. And the way that commercial beekeeping, which is bad, I agree with, but the way that commercial beekeeping works is if you give them storage space, bees will fill it with honey because they think they are going to die.
Well, it's like, why not have more, right?
Right. So
it
basically,
lasts forever.
Yeah. So basically, if you've ever like opened a cupboard in your home and been like, oh, there's a shelf here that I don't have a lot of stuff
It's
on.
honey
I
now.
should move some of the stuff I have cluttered in this closet into this other closet and fill it up. That urge to like fill the space with honey is what bees do. And so the average beehive, even not the average natural beehive will make 60 pounds of honey in a season, but they only need about 20 pounds to get through the winter, unless it's a really, really bad winter. So even natural bees that are not being kept in a commercial beekeeping enterprise, they're making way more honey than they need. And there are safe, ethical ways to take that honey.
I mean, the thing is, though, it's only more ethical, right?
Correct.
Ultimately, you're still taking something from the bees, and bees can't talk, so you can't say to them, like, hey, could I have some of your honey?
Correct.
And frankly, they're such hoarders that even if you could, they'd probably be like, hell no.
Yes.
I need my 999 elixirs. What happens if I really need it?
I totally agree. I absolutely agree that what we're talking about here is like levels of ethics, and people who are like, I cannot take an animal product from an animal that cannot consent. That's totally fair. And I'm not at all trying to tell those people that they're wrong.
Yeah.
But if that is something that you have a concern about, that you're sort of on the fence about, I do think that there are natural beekeepers and slow level beekeepers who are working really hard to take really good care of their bees.
Yeah. I will say, like, I mean, I know there's a big difference. A lot of the honey that you buy in stores basically is more syrup and less honey, right? Often they literally add, like, sugar syrup to it, basically. It's also made in these massive industrial farms, which I'm sure you're about to tell us about. So actually, maybe I'll let you get to it. But versus like a small, someone with like maybe 100 hives, even max. Not even. You think
There's
like
small
10?
beekeeper. Yeah. Background beekeeping has grown exponentially in the UK, which I fully support.
Yeah.
And even a single, like I said, a single hive is going to get you 30 pounds of honey. So like, you only need a few hives, and you can take the fewer hives you have, the better you can take care of them.
And the thing is, it's good for the environment, right? Like, we want to encourage people to take care of bees. And I'm sure the bees, like, it, to some extent, I think it can be done in a parasitic way, which I think a lot of commercial operations do. But it can also be done in a more, like, commensalistic way.
Yeah.
Where basically they benefit and so do we.
Yeah.
Because we are building them a house, basically.
Yeah. So I was looking at the Natural Beekeeping Trust, and they were bad-mouthing the Backyard Beekeepers Association of the UK because the Backyard Beekeeping Association encourages a lot of these really horrible, like, harmful practices. Like, the most common practice for factory farm style and for professional beekeepers is to clip the queen's wings off.
Yeah, that's pretty sad. Because then they can't leave, basically.
Yeah, they can't swarm. And the idea is like the way that they go about, like beekeeping competitions, how much honey did you get out of your hive? That's all they care about. It's not about how healthy your bees are. It's not about how many of them survive the winter, because we know still that there's a good 20% of hives every year are being lost in the winter.
Wow.
And maybe that's because you're taking all their frickin' honey.
Yeah.
Because honey is not just sugar water.
There's more to it than that.
Way more. So I did have this quote that I wanted to read. So any surplus honey at the end of a season is the hive's insurance against future poor foraging conditions. Modern beekeeping has forgotten this and removes any honey deemed to be surplus at the end of each forage season. Indeed, many beekeepers remove all of the honey, not just at the end of the season, but any time the bees store any significant amount. Bee-centered beekeeping carefully assesses the amount of honey present in a colony and only harvests that which is genuinely surplus, leaving the bees plenty of honey to survive the winter. For an inexperienced beekeeper, it is always wise to err on the side of caution and leave more honey rather than less until one knows one's bees and the local climate. So yeah, just
It's like taking every single thing that they have.
Yes.
Obviously, there's a reason that they built up
It's
the
like
stockpile in the first place.
It's like somebody clearing out your pantry and leaving you with artificial potato flakes as your only food source to survive the winter. Because sugar water is not an acceptable alternative to honey.
Yeah.
So yes, I do think that there are ethical beekeepers. I think that the UK has a lot of them, which I fully support. I love. I mean, I brought with us our Sussex honey. I will hold up to the camera so you can see. It's wonderful. And we go to the local honey people, and yeah, I pay 15 quid a jar.
It's a lot. But look at how long that's lasted us.
Oh yeah, we bought this months and months ago.
Yeah. And you can tell the difference, right? Like, you can see how it's crystallizing. Truthfully, because it took us so long to get through that, it's a kilogram of honey.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually, it's mostly crystallized at this point, so I actually usually have to give it a little bit, like a couple, 10 seconds in the microwave to warm it up.
Just as an FYI, crystallized honey, totally fine.
Yeah, but I don't like the texture very much, though.
Oh, yeah, and it doesn't pour. It doesn't pour
But
very
basically,
well.
I don't think I've ever had this syrup that I buy in stores crystallize like that. And sometimes it's sat in the fridge for, 2 years, and it doesn't crystallize. What?
It's sus.
What's up with that? You know?
Yeah.
That's not right.
Yeah. But yeah, bees biologically are compulsively driven to produce as much honey as possible, and forcing them to do so they basically add more hive on as the bee fills it up. So then the bees are like, oh, we gotta make more honey. I do think that that's also kind of harmful because it's stressful for the bees. Very stressful.
Yeah.
However, just like when we talk about the medical industry, I think that there are ethical ways to do this. Not as ethical as they could be. And it's sort of like, I think there's always going to be people who want to eat meat. I think that there's a lot of ways that you can make meat rearing more ethical. I think, friggin', I don't want to dig too far into it because I don't want to talk about the meat industry because that's a whole nightmare.
Yeah.
But I do think there's small local farms, knowing where your food comes from. I think people can get in touch with their local beekeepers, talk to them about how they care for their bees, how do they harvest their honey, have a conversation with them. If you don't like what it sounds like, you should get into beekeeping yourself.
If you can, yeah.
Yeah,
that's a big barrier to entry for
absolutely.
A lot of people. We can't even do that.
It's a very privileged thing, I will say. Very, very privileged.
But I do think it improves the environment also. You know?
Yes.
And I will say a bee box is not that expensive. It's like 100 quid.
No.
But then you get, that's 1 kilogram is about 2 pounds, right? You get 30 pounds of honey, you said, out of a hive, just about. So that's 15 kilograms, which will last you.
You would get about 15 jars about this size.
I mean, that has already lasted us, 2 months, 3? And we use a decent amount, right?
I don't even know when this is
It's
from.
been, I'm going to say it's about 2 months old. We use a decent amount.
No, I think it's longer than that. I feel like we've had this since before the beginning of the year, since last year.
Sure. Would you think so? No, I don't think so.
This one? Yeah, I feel like we got it last Christmas around, didn't we?
Really? God, it's been a long time, hasn't it? I think you're right, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. We've had it for a while, basically. If you're getting 30 pounds of honey, that's more than enough for you for an entire year.
And your friends.
And your friends, probably, right?
Give them your ethically sourced honey.
And all you need to do, the barrier to entry is not that high if you have land. We don't have land, so the barrier to entry is very high.
I know, but wouldn't it be lovely if public parks started doing natural hives? There's opportunities there, I think, to have natural hives.
I almost think it should be on rooftops. Because
That
like
would
I
be
said,
good
they
too.
don't want to be where the flowers are. They want to be nearby.
I know.
But yes, I do think some people do rooftop hives, but you have to get permission for that, and it's a freaking ordeal because nobody owns the places that they live in.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely would encourage anyone who's sort of on the fence, who's like, I really want honey. It's so good for you. I want these bee products. look into it.
Yeah.
Get informed on the local sources. Figure out, where is your honey coming from? Is there a way to get it more ethically? Like here in Brighton, like I said, we have our Sussex beekeepers, and there's a shop that works with local beekeepers to sell local honey right in the Brighton open market, which I think is fantastic. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that briefly just because I know there's some people who are going to be like, I'm touting all of the benefits of all of these bee products, and people are going to be like, you're hurting the bees. And I agree.
Ultimately,
And also,
it is extractive, right? It's
Yeah.
a little bit like where humanity, by this I mean landlords, building them little bee houses and then being like, you won't pay the rent. And, the commercial beekeepers are like, you going to pay literally every single thing that you have. And the non-commercial backyard beekeepers are like, you're going to give me half of everything that you have? So I do get why a vegan might be like, yo,
Yeah,
I hate that
agree.
that happens in my life, so I don't want to do it to another innocent creature. But I also think, it's really good for you. It's good for the environment. And the truth is, I think very few people are going to be building bee houses for bees unless, they get something out of it. And I do think, yes, if you're not killing them, by taking every single bit of honey that they have and are leaving them, I mean, you said it made 50 to 60 pounds.
Yeah.
One hive.
Yeah.
So, and you should leave them 20, like, to
You
be
should
safe.
leave them 30.
So leave them 30 then. But then you're still getting 20 to 30 pounds, which is what, 10 to 15 kilograms of honey a year, which again, like for us, me and my wife, and we use honey a pretty good amount, that's more than enough to get through the entire year.
Yeah,
and you could always just have like 2 hives, right? Or 3 hives.
That's what I'm saying. If you have 2 or 3 hives, it's even better for the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit because I do think that we always try to touch on like the other side of what we're looking at. So I didn't want to make people feel too left out.
No, I get that. But I think, I mean, I just love honey and I love bees. And I do think, well, honeybees at least. Like I said, I used to hate bees, but I think you're right. They were all wasps and hornets.
I love the bumblebees too. They're so cute.
They are very cute. I agree.
Just the name, bumblebee.
But I've walked past swarms of bees because they cut back on the insecticides. The bees are coming back, basically. And I haven't been stung once. I haven't even felt in danger of being stung once. Meanwhile,
today a bee landed on my shirt.
Yeah.
And was like, why isn't this a flower? And I was like, I'm sorry, buddy.
Well, it was hovering right in front of you, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It landed on me for a second, and then I moved.
Yeah. Oh.
I scared it. Anyway, so now we're going to talk about the mythology and symbolism of bees.
Well, I do want to say my story.
Sure.
So in the U.S., I remember one time as a child, I got a bee landed on me and I was hurt. And I went to the nurse or whatever, the school nurse, and I was like, I've been stung by a bee. And she said, I don't see a stinger. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, I think it bit you.
Bees don't do that.
I'm telling you, that wasp bit me. That hornet or whatever.
No. If it was a wasp or a hornet, their stingers don't come out. Honeybee stingers are barbed. That's the difference. That's what I'm saying. The stinger comes out and stays in you, and they die.
With
Wasps and hornets can sting you forever.
Oh, well, maybe she was just mistaken then, and it was a wasp sting or something.
Yeah.
But I just remember I was like, that freaking bee hated me.
Do you know what else, though? Do you know what the problem is, too?
Yeah.
And this was an absolutely, like, a media hysteria. We grew up during the Africanized honeybee insanity.
Yes.
The news media was like, insane Africanized honeybees are in your child's playground. Like, I was out in California, and when I was in 3rd grade, our playground sandbox was closed, and they made a huge radius around it for, like, the entire school year because there was an Africanized honeybee nest in the sandbox. and you couldn't get within like they closed off half the playground.
Wow.
Until they could get somebody out. And the Africanized honeybee thing is crazy. You should definitely look it up and read about the story, because a man was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a crazy bee.
He made like a genetic super soldier bee.
Yeah.
And then released it into the wilderness by accident, ostensibly. And then it proceeded to kill all of the like regular bees. And now we have like space marine, evil bees going around killing all the good bees.
But I think that was a huge part of your and I's inherent fear of bees as children, because there were murder bees on the news.
I do think there was a bit of a panic about that, but no, I had all sorts of crazy, we had like bees under the deck regularly, and my mother would do these insane things like pour a pot of boiling water on them to try to get them out, and that would just piss them off. And then I'd have to walk, and anytime I would go in that like region, there was a swarm of really pissed off bees, basically.
They remember faces.
Do they?
Yes, and
that
smells.
Explains a lot.
They remember faces and smells.
Yeah.
They can identify people.
Okay, well that explains quite a bit, because I remember scooting on the backside of the deck about 30 feet away from the beehive, and one of them came over and got me. And there was another time I was pulling up.
There was a poster on that hive's wall. Mm-hmm. Like a most wanted poster with your face on it.
I didn't pour the water on them. What the hell?
The whole family was sus.
And then I remember there was another time she had me doing some weeding, and it was like grass in an area it wasn't supposed to be, basically. And I was like, there's a lot of bees out there. I really don't want to do that. And of course, my mother was like, you're gonna do it. So then I went and did it.
Yeah.
And I pulled up the grass, and there must have been a beehive or something underneath it. Because this, like a cartoon swarm came out to kill me. And I ran screaming inside and slammed the glass door behind me. And they were like, we're gonna get you. We remember your face.
I wonder if you had Africanized honeybees.
So that was very scary. And I do remember, unfortunately, as a child, I was like, please, God, would you just please kill all of the bees for me? Please, if you only do one thing for me, kill all the bees.
She doesn't think that way anymore.
And then I grew up and I was like, oh no, that's like the one thing I asked for that actually happened. And now I regret it. The monkey's paw curls, no.
I mean, I will say, I didn't actually do too many notes about this, but I was reading up on, so colony collapse disorder was a big thing in the early 2000s and 2010s because all the bees were dying.
Yeah.
I will say the numbers have greatly improved. We're still losing a lot of beehives. Like I mentioned, about 20% of beehives is normal to lose from commercial farms. Which is still pretty messed up. But back during the height of colony collapse disorder, it was like 40 to 50%. It was pretty crazy.
Well, the thing is, it's because of the way we farm. And I could go into a long lot of detail about this. But the way that we farm is so unnatural and environmentally destructive and incompetent. And it's like, in order to cover up for the fact that we're not farming in a way that makes any amount of sense at all, we just sort of like blast it with insecticide, which kills everything. And then because insects are kind of on the bottom rung of the food chain, it kills everything else. So we were sort of like destroying the earth in order to farm more ineffectively. And I could go on like a 30-minute rant about this, so I'm gonna not go into too much detail there. I encourage you to look it up yourself. But
that wasn't the only cause of colony collapse disorder. So there are like, apparently this is sort of a not common thing, but sort of like humankind gets plagues every like 20 years or so. I mean, more often now. But basically the same sort of thing happens to the bee population every like 50 or so years. There's like, it's sort of a combination of factors. Insecticides, there was also a really deadly mite that increased in numbers, and a lot of these bees, because they're being factory farmed, had less resistance because they had lower immune systems because they were under constant stress. Yeah. Just like us. So basically, it was sort of like COVID for the bees, and it improved.
More like the Black Death, really.
Yeah, it was the Black Plague, and apparently it happens cyclically. But yes, factory farming is absolutely a huge factor in decreasing bees' immune systems, which therefore increases colony collapse disorder.
Yeah.
But like I said, we have improved in some ways. We're still factory farming bees way too much, and it's horrible, and I want it to stop. But the numbers have gotten better.
I do think, though, like, it is... Because it isn't just bees, right? Like, there used to be fireflies all over when I was a child. There's none. There's nothing.
They were the last couple of years at our house in New Hampshire. We had a lot in the backyard.
Only in our backyard.
The
because
dog
we
would
left
chase
it,
them. It was very cute.
Yes, but we left our backyard unmowed. Totally, like, we didn't mess with it at all. And we got all kinds of wildlife because of that.
We're super lazy, but it was definitely for the environment and not because we didn't want to mow.
Well, we didn't go back there much. It was mostly for the dog to run around.
Yeah.
But I also think, like, it was... No, it was better that way. I actually was quite upset selling my house because I knew... I was talking to them and I was like, unless you're going to use the backyard for something, you should leave it that way. Because we were getting bunnies, we were getting fireflies.
Possum. Remember the possum?
I've never seen a possum in New Hampshire in my life.
It was so
and we got one in our backyard because we were leaving it empty.
Wild. Yeah.
Wild. And I was looking at her and I was like, please, unless you're going to actually use your backyard, don't destroy what I've built, basically. And I could tell from the look on her face that she was like, yeah, that's cool. Anyway, I'm going to do that immediately the second that you leave. And I was like, great.
Anyway, we're going to get back to bees and
Yes.
mythology.
Yeah.
I mean, we were still talking about bees, but I wanted to get into the mythology and stories behind bees because some of them are very interesting. So, obviously, ancient Egypt, according to ancient Egyptian... Let me try that again.
Well, I do want to say, I know that they've dialed back. There's some kind of regulation in the UK now about insecticide that just went
That's
into
why there's
effect
bees everywhere.
last year. And there's bees everywhere. And there's all these other bugs. And, you know, some of them are a bit creepy crawly, and I don't necessarily like them.
Get a screen for your window.
But it's like, because of that also, like, we have all these birds because they eat the bugs.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just be like, I'm going to grow crops so inefficiently that the only way they can survive is by covering them in poison, and oops, that kills all life.
Yeah. According to the ancient Egyptians, bees were the tears of the sun god Ra, golden drops that landed on the desert sand. In ancient Greece, Aristaeus was the god of beekeeping. Bees were linked to prophecy in ancient Greece and in a lot of cultures, actually. So the famous Oracle of Delphi is referred to as the Delphian bee. Apollo's gift of prophecy was given to him by 3 bee maidens. I don't know what that means. I just read that. Like, are they like were they just like 6-foot tall bees? Or were they ladies with like bee wings? And
They're bee monster girls.
are they just made of bees?
You know, like a cat girl, right? It's like
No,
the cat ear and the cat tail.
But now I'm imagining just like, you know,
bee
those
girl.
people that are just covered in bees?
Yeah.
Would have made of bees.
That's horrible. I don't like that.
Yeah.
No, I think this is ancient Greece. They were all fucking.
Or like
okay?
Rick and Morty's 1 million ants. It's 1 million bees.
No. These were sexy bee ladies. They had, you know, they would go like bzzz as they were speaking, obviously. They had like the thorax looking bottom half.
Thick in the thorax. Is that what you're getting at?
They had a black and yellow color scheme.
Black and yellow, black
Yeah.
and yellow.
I've seen bee ladies on the internet.
Okay. So the goddess Potnia of Minos was an ancient pre-classical goddess of nature, birth, and death. She was known as the mother goddess of Minos and was called the Great Mother Bee. Minoan Crete was a Bronze Age culture and a precursor to classical Greece. It was absorbed into Mycenaean culture, which is the culture that would eventually become what we consider classical ancient Greece. So many of the gods and goddesses of ancient Greece had different titles or names linked to various aspects, and that's because in pre-classical Greece, all these nations had their own gods and goddesses, and they were just kind of mushed all together into the classic pantheon that we know today. Because of this, one of Artemis's names was Melissa, or bee. The word Melissa, the name Melissa, just means bee in Greek.
I love that. That's amazing.
It was also one of the names for the priestesses of Demeter or the goddess of like agriculture and grain and all of that, was Melissa as well.
I love that Melissa is like an ancient name. The other one that really gets me is Tiffany.
Mm-hmm.
Tiffany
An
is like
ancient
an
Greek
ancient
name.
Greek name that they would name like queens and things.
Yeah.
I just every time I hear that,
Yeah.
you can call me
Rachel. Rachel is from the Bible.
A lot of them are Bible names, that's true. But I don't like those as much, to be honest.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, a group of Tiffany, Rachel, and Melissa, what are you picturing in your head?
I know,
Because it's
right?
not ancient Greeks.
Yes, you're right. I know. That's so true. It's very funny
It's
to
like
me, though.
It's like a Mean Girls group.
Well, every time I hear, like, because I'd read Theophania is what they would also say, but Tiffany is what they'd be called a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So it's just so funny reading like history stuff, which I can be into the history of that time period a lot. And it's like, yes, Queen Theophania. And I'm like, Tiffany, slay!
Hey, girlfriend. Yeah, imagine walking into like a temple of Demeter and going, Melissa, oh my God.
Well, the thing I remembered was they sent Charlemagne had this like Byzantine Greek princess named Theophania. And they were complaining about her because she was basically like, yeah, I want to have a bath every day and I want like perfume and perfumed oils. And they were like, this lady's such a pain in the ass. She wants to like be clean
and smell nice.
and smell nice.
So, question for you. What is it about bees that might spark the idea of prophecy?
Many things. First of all, I do think it really do be as simple as that it's yellow. The sun is yellow. It's really that simple. People look for stronger connections than that, and they don't exist.
Okay, but what I'm trying to get at is like the oracle at Delphi.
Sure.
What about that's a bee?
Well, let me finish. So, the sun is like the source of life and has a lot of power to it, right? You need the sun to live, basically. That's true now, even. Basically, every power source that we have that isn't geothermal or nuclear comes out of sunlight one way or another, right? So, pretty good. So I think the sun's super important. And then, like, gold also is, like, the color of the sun. And honey is the color of gold and the sun.
And bees
so
are kind of gold.
This like yellow golden color becomes like relevant in that way. I think the other thing is that I know that Greece and Turkey, and I'm gonna really ruffle some feathers now, they're all the same people, like genetically. Like I think a lot of people think that like the Turks came in and replaced the Greeks, and they sort of did, and like the leadership did, but the people stayed the same. We're going to maybe get some really angry comments from this one. But the people are the same, basically, the vast majority of people. It's very much with, like, the Norman conquest, in that, like, sure, the Vikings conquered Normandy, sort of. Then they conquered England, sort of. And they forced people to speak what they were speaking, which was French at the time. But the English people are mostly genetically the same, Anglo-Saxon, really, with a little bit of the French in us, right?
Yeah.
But to get back to it, Turkey and Greece, I think.
Bees, prophecy.
Yes. So there's, in Turkey and Greece, there's a honey that comes out of a specific type of plant. Type of flower. I can't remember the name of it, but it's called mad honey is what the common...
Rhododendron.
Yes, rhododendron.
It's
yes.
rhododendron honey.
So... there is historical records. There was some Greek whatever, basically, where these people were trying to trek their way through Turkey. And I think some of it was like hostile territory. It was like an army. And there was mad honey in that record. So they were familiar with this. They were familiar with rhododendron honey. So this glorious golden thing that is the color of the sun. It keeps forever, which makes it seem like magic, right? Like you have to preserve everything else in your life. this super high calorie, healthy thing, which is also really useful for medicine, lasts forever and is the color of the sun.
It might be prophetic.
Yes. And then also some of it, specifically the rhododendron honey, fucks you up. Basically, you go on a trip. And I do think I could absolutely see someone channeling that into, like, I can tell prophecy from this, right?
Yeah, but also I could see them then linking the creators of honey, the bee, to being powerful, tiny, magical beings.
Yeah, like almost like fairies in a way, right?
Yeah.
It's like a mystical creature because
Yeah.
they didn't know necessarily how it worked, that they gather from the flowers and how that whole process works. They just see, I'm sure they knew
The
that they needed
Greeks
flowers.
knew about the nectar because nectar is one of the ingredients of ambrosia, which is what the Olympic gods ate.
Oh, really? Oh, fair enough. But
So-
then even more so then, right? So then that's what they said, because ambrosia is supposed to make you immortal, right?
That is
Which, again, like, honey lasts forever. Nothing else in reality lasts forever, really. Honey lasts longer than, like, most things, Things that have been carved into stone have been withered away by the desert sands, and honey persists. So, absolutely, if I'm looking at magical shit, and I'm living in, 200 BCE, and someone says to me, honey is magic, yeah, I believe that. Frankly, I still think that way now, There is, like, a power in it.
I mean, magic, science is just magic that we've comprehended the way that the magic works, in my opinion.
I get that. No, I totally understand that.
Because, like, we may know how a molecule of food becomes a molecule of energy in our bodies. That doesn't mean that the process is not still magical.
Yes.
In some way.
Yeah. I do think, like, I know when people were learning quantum physics, back when it was really being discovered almost in, like, 1920 or whatever, it was so, like, confusing to people because it really is, like, everything is fields. Everything is vibes, basically. There's also all these weird things with,
Let your field touch my field. Vibes.
But, like, basically, our atoms don't touch.
No.
They're just little magnets that push away electrons that push away other electrons. So when we touch and it bounces off, that's because
that's the sensation of touch.
That's the sensation of the electrons
the sensation
not actually
of touch.
just pushing up against each other but not touching.
Yeah, the sensation of touch is actually the feeling of our electrons resisting each other.
Yes. But then, like, there is also, like, you can merge with things, right? Like, you can, like, if I painted, like, something sticky like honey on my hand, for example, right? That's its electrons being magnetically attracted to my electrons in a way, right? Yeah. I mean, this is all way beyond me.
I mean, we're getting so off track.
But I guess basically, like, science is absurdly complicated sometimes and almost impossible for us, our human minds, to understand, in the way that, like, I can picture one thing. I cannot picture a billion of that thing. It's actually impossible for me to do that, really.
But even when we fully understand and comprehend the process of something, that doesn't mean that it's not friggin' magical.
Yes, that's what I mean, right? Like, what I said to you about the quantum physics and all of that, and is like, you can look at it as like, well, since we've explained it, it doesn't have magic anymore. But, like, why not?
Yeah, it's cool.
Like, I do think it has magic. This is a healing, eternally lasting, golden colored of the sun, delightful, tasty snack.
Yeah.
Made by a bug out of flowers. Like, okay, I say that it's magic. What are you to say that it isn't?
Absolutely. I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah.